Welcome to On the Firing Line on the information station, AM 1440 KUHL. Information, education, news, and politics of firearms and ammunition is found here. If you have any questions, call us at 1-888-625-1440. That's 1-888-625-1440.
Has anyone noticed that these mass shootings at public schools increased after the 1995 Gun-Free Zone Act? Passed with good intentions, banning guns would supposedly make schools safer. But law-abiding citizens, not criminals, obey these bans. Instead of making places safer, disarming law-abiding citizens left them sitting ducks. Killers go where victims can't defend themselves. In the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting, out of 7 theaters showing the Batman movie premiere within 20 minutes of the suspect's apartment, only one banned permitted concealed handguns. The suspect didn't go to the closest nor the largest, but to the one that banned self-defense. Time after time, the story is the same. And you are on the firing line with Matt and Joe today. If you'd like to be a part of today's show, please give us a call at 888-625-1440, or if you're in the Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440. And actually, Matt is not with us today, but Jim is here with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Faithful
as always. And today we're going to be talking about exactly that, gun-free zones. I think that it's something we should talk about. It's something that we see more and more in the news. It's being brought up all the time. And we have to ask ourselves, how does it protect us? What can we do to better protect ourselves? And where does common sense play into this?
Well, Joe, we've talked about this quite a bit, where a criminal really doesn't want to die. Most criminals don't want to die.
And if they do, they want to make the name for themselves by getting the largest body count possible so they can go down and remember it in history as, hey, do you remember that? Do you remember that guy?
Yeah. Right.
Unfortunately.
What a crazy thing to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so they're not going to pick something that maybe, just maybe, somebody may have a gun.
Right. It's really unfortunate, but that's exactly the mentality is they cower in the idea of sometimes shooting themselves or cower in the ability of facing attackers who can defend themselves. And so they go for the easiest mark to make their name or to rob or do whatever they can. You've seen many of the stories or heard many of the stories even here on the radio show where we've talked about people that have broken into homes and once confronted by somebody with a firearm, they've either fled or got shot.
Right. Yeah. Well, I talked about that with some people that we put on here a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted to know more information. And I said, listen, a woman was hit in the face, or missed by the first one, but hit in the face by the second kid in the knockout game. But by then she had got her 38 out and shot 2 of them.
Right. It's just that. If those kids had even thought that she was armed, that she could shoot them, do you think they would have tried to knock her out?
Absolutely not.
No. We need the deterrence. And I'll tell you what, if you're worried that guns shown in the public are going to be a nuisance and might cause people to do bad things, think of this. CCW holders, their guns shouldn't be showing in the first place.
Right.
But yet, if the public knows that, hey, there's a possibility that person might have a gun, I don't know if he does, but there's a strong possibility, you can guarantee that's going to be a strong deterrence. Unless, of course, they're hopped up on drugs or just
crazy,
plain crazy as it is.
Well, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, is that you remember when the gun racks used to be in the back of trucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Heck, we had guys calling in on the show saying they used to take their gun to school, put it in their locker, and go hunting afterwards.
Yeah.
It wasn't an uncommon place or an uncommon thing for our children, or not our children, but our grandparents and their parents to have firearms, to ride their pony to work or ride their truck, from the farm and have their weapons in the back. They didn't have to worry about them being broken in and stolen, and occasionally I'm sure it did happen. These things, that's the way life was. And we also had more programs in schools to teach children about guns and teach children more responsibility, I think, too, which has a lot to do with it. Today's times, we see too many single parents. We see too many families that are having both parents having to work, and we have babysitters taking care of our children now.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to take the time to take responsibility for our children.
Yeah, but you should.
You have to.
You're a single father,
I am a single father.
and you take good care of your kids. Every time I hear you're talking about one or the other one.
Well, I try my best. I'm not the best father in the world. I'm not the worst either. Of course, my kids disagree with that. They think I'm the best.
Of course they do. You're the hero, man. Are you kidding?
But, my kids know about firearms. They know where they can get one to protect themselves at home. They don't take guns out in the street. They wouldn't even dare. Let me give you an example. My son Damon, the other day, he had a T-shirt that had an inappropriate thing on it, and we got in the car to take off, and he realized, oh my God, I need to change this shirt. I can't wear this outside. And I didn't say a word to him. He goes, Dad, you got a T-shirt in the trunk? Because I always keep T-shirts in the trunk along with other supplies. And he changed. He changed in the back of the car because he didn't want to go to the mall with something like that on.
Yeah.
That's taking responsibility without me having to say anything because we've already taught him.
Yes, absolutely, Joe. That's correct. That's correct. He knows, and he's got a moral sense that, hey, I can mess around with people around my neighborhood and around my house or whatever, but in public, I gotta do something different.
He represents for my family.
Yes, exactly. Especially when he's with his dad.
Yeah, absolutely. And my children, they're kids. They like to go out and do kid things. Don't get me wrong, but they understand. They understand the plight of living, and they understand the plight of being, responsible young little men. Which both of them have excellent grades. I'm very happy to say this year.
Perfect. But back to your First or Second Amendment encounter thing. We're not even trying it, and we've said this before, Joe. I'm sorry, I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's true. They're not even really trying it, except for we know of one city in Tennessee that has a law that you must carry.
Right.
But that's it. I mean, why don't they just try it? Because it's just like the Duck Dynasty thing. We've seen the absolute
hypocrisy.
Win, right. A win, though.
Okay.
You see, Duck Dynasty said, we're not going to do anything. We're going to let what we have already put out there represent us. And sure enough, now A&E collapsed last night. You knew that. They collapsed.
And they're going to go ahead and keep up.
They're going to keep up.
They have to.
And did you hear the statement? I read the statement because I didn't know if I was going to be on the air today with you guys or not, but I read the statement, and it said, in that statement, Phil represents more than just himself. It's a family show about everybody at the family, and Phil is only one part of it.
Excellent.
And he's entitled, and I thought that's what you should do, is just work it out, man.
That's the way it should be, and tolerance is huge. That's one thing that really upset me is that it seemed like one particular group got a call to arms and had no tolerance for it.
Right.
And that's just ridiculous, because even in Phil's statement, he had tolerance.
Well, even the Reverend Jackson wanted to get involved.
Oh, God, he wants to get involved in everything.
And he wanted to bring, of course, Cracker Barrel with him in the meeting. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for the man, but he seems to be like a shakedown artist. Or something.
Pardon my language.
Yeah, we don't want to say anything negative about him, but you know what I'm saying. It just seems that way. What has he got to do with anything except for that Phil mentioned that he used to work in the fields with black guys, black people rather, African Americans, and he said that they were just people that he worked with, and they seemed okay to him. That they weren't needy, they weren't this, they weren't that. He just made a statement. That's all he really made. That was his statement. He's seen it that way. He's never lived on a different view, but although he's not a cracker, the guy graduated from Louisiana Tech. Man.
Right.
He's a smart man with a degree.
Wasn't he was over Terry Bradshaw or something?
Terry Bradshaw, yeah, he was the starting quarterback. Terry Bradshaw was warming the bench.
Right.
And the truth of it is that he is a very smart guy, and all his kids have got degrees. They're not stupid people.
No, they didn't make all that money after the show started. They made it before.
They just made a ton more after.
Right.
But anyway, that's the way it should be worked out. Let the thing work itself out. And make the right decisions. A&E finally made the right decision. They didn't cave. They just decided to make, this is really what, we should let this go. And that's good. We're going to probably see more of that.
I'm sure that they got the public was so involved after hearing this and finding out what the decisions were being made that they made a statement. And the show had to bend. Otherwise, they were going to lose out. And guess what? We wouldn't have that station anymore after a while.
Yeah, that's right. And so it did work out. And I'm really happy that it worked out for the best for both. But see, we're not getting that with the gun-free zone stuff.
Well,
they're not trying it enough, and they're not saying, hey, maybe we should arm. Like I've said this 100 times now, and I've said it in front of other people, not just on this radio station. But if they would just arm our schools in some way. Now, I don't have any suggestions, really, to be honest with you, but in some way, arm the schools and say, guess what? And even put it on the front. We are an armed patrolled school, or we are a school that protects our children with firearms.
You know, it really boils down to common sense. We need to teach our children common sense before we give them the knowledge, because without common sense, the knowledge is useless.
That's
and
right.
that goes straight to colleges, from kindergarten all the way up to college, universities, everything. And without the common sense, how can you make a real decision? How can you sit down and think and debate something unless you bring up facts from the past that may not even have anything to do with what you're dealing with at that situation?
You know, that's
Because
a good
every
point.
situation is different.
That's a good point. Why are you bringing up something else that worked in another situation that may not work in this situation?
Absolutely. You have to take a look at everything in
Good
its
point.
own light.
Cha-ching, one for Joe.
Another truth dart out there. Hey, okay, I wrote a couple things here before I get into these two articles that we have today. First article is going to be Gun-Free Zones of Death. This is by Robert Galinas, the president of the American Rifle and Pistol Association. I also have an interview that was by Newsmax and Dr. Lott. Gun expert Lott, let teachers carry arms, ban gun-free zones to halt mass shootings. And as we read these articles, we're going to see a lot of common sense, I think. And it's from that point that we need to take a look at. You know, we live in a world that is not a perfect world. If it was, we wouldn't need firearms. We wouldn't need wars. We wouldn't need anything, because it would all just be perfect. And we'd be all stagnant.
We'd be in Pleasantville.
Yeah, we'd be in Pleasantville. So here's something that I've written here, kind of based off of the introduction of the Second Amendment encounter and with where the show's going to be going. Basically, based off the Second Amendment encounter, it's true. We see helpless people, adults and children, in areas that are gun-free zones being shot as if they were hunting grounds, no permits needed. What is the purpose of making laws for the insane or the criminals of this world when they don't follow them? It is as if they live on another planet, one where they don't care and worries differ from our own. And I go on to say, in the last 18 years, we have seen some of the most horrific acts committed in our schools and in other gun-free zones across the great country we call home. As I am putting this show together, I have found 38 pages of incidents, far too many to list in this show. But let us think about this. Common sense says if more people have firearms in a world where people already have firearms, more people will have the ability to protect and defend themselves and their family, right? If you don't allow people to have firearms in a world where they already exist, then they who have the power will usurp their power over those who don't. And if they choose to exercise it, we can't stop them. You only have the power to be a martyr. I bet most of us can only name a couple martyrs, if any at all. In other words, you'll probably be forgotten for your lost cause, no matter how noble it is. And what I mean by that, those who don't have firearms and go into an area where people aren't allowed to have them, and a criminal does go in and shoot people, all you're doing is living by an ideal that's fantastic for a perfect world. And that ideal does not stand true here if we think common sense wise. You got to remember, it was even Jesus Christ that went and turned tables and whipped people. Do you
Yeah, because
remember?
they were wrong.
They were
Because, yeah,
wrong.
they were doing something that was basically that made God look like a merchant.
Right. You know, we all have to stand up and think about what's right. And you can go through the Bible if you want to bring up the Bible and stuff, and you can read all kinds of stories where in God's name many people were killed, and many people were punished. And you can go into almost any religion and find these kinds of things. This is not something new. This is part of this world that we live in. Whether it be perfect or not, I'd say not. Or you could say it's perfect as the way it is. Just not by all people's ideals. And America is one of those places where many people with many ideals have to come together. And we have the Constitution that allows us all to live together under one set of rules to kind of give us guidance so that we can have acceptance. And of course, throughout the times and histories, we're going to have flights of fights that we're going to have to conquer and deal with these things. I mean, we've had segregation. We've had all kinds of things throughout time of only this minor, 200 and some years that we've been around.
Yeah, you're right.
And there will be more to come, things that we can't even imagine. But if we have the ability to follow these guidelines that were set before us, we can overcome anything that comes to us. And we have to use some common sense and apply everything to make it work. So today's show is going to be kind of interesting with these two articles. I think that they're going to show us a lot of common sense and give us some ground to really think about. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hit it and hit it hard. All right? Be right back with you on the firing line.
We'll be back to more of On the Firing Line with Joe and Jim after this.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We'll be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years.
Now, a great word from Santa Maria Motorcycles, formerly Santa Maria Harley-Davidson, located at 2022 Prescott Lane. They are dealers for Honda, Kawasaki, and Harley-Davidson. Grab your family and go see the museum, filled with exciting older bikes that you won't see anywhere else on the Central Coast. As well, they are the #1 motorcycle dealer on the Central Coast with the largest inventory around. Go in and see Martin Buchanan, or you can give him a call at 805-928-3668. You can also go visit them every first Thursday of the month for Bike Night. Starts at 6 p.m. Have a great time with your family at Santa Maria Motorcycles.
We're happy to have a special guest here today at the Plumbing Talk Studios, Jeremy Griffin, owner of Griffin Plumbing in Orcutt. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Jeremy, the reason your plumbing company is called Griffin Plumbing is that your last name is, in fact, Griffin.
Yeah, that's right.
Unbelievable! Griffin, just like the legendary creature with the body of a lion and the wings of an eagle.
Yeah.
What a brilliant move, Jeremy.
I'm a genius.
To name your plumbing company after this majestic creature. A creature known not only to have divine power, but also to be a protector from all things evil.
Well, it is my last name.
Audience, listen carefully. If your plumbing devices are threatened in any way, I implore you to seek the power and protection of the Griffin.
We're always here to help. Just give us a call.
Call the Griffin.
Find us at callgriffinplumbing.com or call 934-1949.
You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe today.
Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440. Or if you're in the Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
And of course, don't forget to check us out on Facebook on the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Hey, we're back. You know, I love those commercials.
Yeah,
from
they're
Griffin.
funny, huh?
Yeah, those are great.
Those are funny commercials. It is my last name.
Yes,
you know?
it is my last name after all. Protector.
You're a genius. Yeah, well, yeah, I've been told that.
I do like those. Those are great. I'm very happy to have Griffin on as one of our new sponsors, and they backing us up along with Tactical Guns and Gear and Santa Maria Motorcycles there, formerly Harley-Davidson, Santa Maria of Harley-Davidson. You know what?
And Coleman
and
Law.
Matt Coleman, well, not Matt, Coleman. I'm getting it all wrong here today. The Law Institute. Right. The law offices of Coleman there. He's been a huge supporter as well. And, you know, anytime you guys have any needs that can help these guys out because they support us, please give them a call. Throw them anything that you can to show them that, hey, it's worth putting your time and money into helping this show stay alive because, after all, they are protecting something that's valuable to all of us, and that's
Second Amendment right.
Our Second Amendment right.
And if you'd like to be a sponsor, give Joe a call.
You can always call me at Tactical Guns and Gear. Ask for me directly. That phone number over there, Tactical Guns and Gear, is 805-346-2501. Not only do I just do this show, but I manage the shop over there with the owner, Brian. And we have a lot of fun over there with all the guys. So, hey, don't forget about us there.
Yeah, so if you definitely want to sponsor, just contact Joe too, just like they did.
Absolutely. All right, we're back into gun-free zones here. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, reading from these two articles that I have, and kind of, poking, making fun, and having a good time about them. Because there's a lot to be said here, and especially if we're using common sense. This first article was written by Robert Galinas. That's the best way I can pronounce it.
That's Galinas.
Okay, president of the American Rifle and Pistol Association. And it goes on like this, okay? There is a common idiom in the South, often used to refer to an extreme level of stupidity, that goes something like this. That was dumber than somebody trying to rob a Waffle House. Can you imagine hearing that? That's not what we say out here.
No.
But that's okay. Now, for those not familiar with the meaning of this expression, let me explain. Waffle houses are part of a chain of roadside diners, open 24 hours a day, most notably known to be a favorite place frequented by law enforcement officers. Hence, this expression became a natural catchphrase because, indeed, there have been several anecdotal incidents of spectacularly stupid criminals seeking to rob a defenseless Waffle House cashier or manager, only to be saved by one or more heavily armed and well-trained cops on the scene, typically ushering the criminal promptly to his just reward. Can you imagine what that just reward is?
Yeah, 38.
Boom, boom, boom. All right. In many respects, a Waffle House represents the antithesis of the idea of a gun-free zone. For not only does Waffle House cater to a healthy patronage of law enforcement personnel, but many of its civilian clientele are well represented in the concealed carry weapons segment of the population, CCW people. There probably aren't many other places around here starting some trouble or committing a violent crime would be a worse idea. Save an actual police station, inside a gun dealer store, or perhaps at a Navy SEAL training camp. Yeah, try robbing one of those guys in their homes.
Yeah, that's why they're making it so, tongue-in-cheek here.
But that's the truth. The criminals don't necessarily go to those places, and they're dumber than mud if they do. They're dumber than mud.
Yeah, like a bag of hammers.
Yeah, dumber than someone trying to rob a Waffle House, okay? But on the other hand, there are places designated by the force of law or proprietary discretion as gun-free zones, otherwise known as GFZ. Now, mind you, designating any place as a GFZ is no way means that it's actually free of guns. It just means that the law-abiding aren't allowed to have them there, and the vast majority of the time, the law-abiding obey the law. Conversely, while the violent criminals and psychopathically deranged aren't legally allowed to have guns in gun-free zones either, those folks aren't too hung up on signs or stickers standing in their way of causing wanton carnage and suffering when the mood hits. No, a gun-free zone just means a place where the bad guys can freely choose to do bad things, and the good guys are defenseless to stop them. And that's pretty much the point of the whole show here.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Isn't it? That's what it is. Don't bring a gun in here because we don't want you to protect our premises.
Well, that's just it. It's advertising too. Hey, look, defenseless sheep here. Come on in.
Exactly.
Pick what you want. Dinner's here on us.
Well, it's saying to the law-abiding, we don't want you here. But the criminal, hey.
No, they want the law-abiding there. They just want them to be helpless. And the criminals, who we can't tell apart sometimes from the good guys or the bad guys, as we can tell with our politicians. Hey.
Joe.
Look at it from a criminal psycho's perspective. If one wishes to rob a store or shoot up a lot of adults and or children, and perhaps not risk getting him shot himself in the process, are they going to do it at the Waffle House or the gun-free zone? Pretty easy call, right? Factor this into discussion for a couple of fun facts. Multiple crime statistics studies in recent years consistently affirm that violent crimes are overwhelmingly committed by criminals and only a tiny fraction of less than 1% by concealed carry weapon license holders. We're talking less than 1 or 0.2%, i.e. practically negligible. And that makes sense. CCW holders are vetted, background checked, and in many states required to be trained and tested. These are the documented good guys, not the bad guys. And by and large, CCW holders are outside of the law enforcement personnel the only people in the public who are lawfully permitted to be armed. Everyone else who is armed in public without a license is breaking the law and therefore, by definition, is one of the bad guys. That's a good point. We have the Second Amendment, but we also have laws that constrain us here within society, and we try to follow those laws to be a part of society and to do what we believe is right. And in doing so, if the law says, look, you can't carry a gun, you don't carry it.
Right.
And as soon as you break the law, then you've jumped sides. Whether you disagree with the law or not, you've jumped sides and you have automatically become one of the bad guys. And so you're making a conscious choice. We have laws that are unconstitutional. And in some cases, I guess we have to decide, how do we fight this law? What's the best way to fight the law so that we can get that right back?
Absolutely. I wanted to bring up something because something was said to me today, and I knew I was going to bring this up. My granddaughter came up to me and questioned me about a bunch of stuff. She likes to ask me questions to see if I know the answer. And you know what? One of the questions that she asked me, this is really wild. She said, do you know in Afghanistan girls aren't allowed to go to school?
That's terrible.
She's a 10-year-old girl.
Okay.
Now, she knows that, right? Because she goes to school. What did you think she was thinking?
That she didn't want to have to go to school?
No, she was thinking how stupid it is to live in Afghanistan if you're a girl, right?
Right.
Because they don't get treated like she gets treated. That's the way she answered it, right?
America, freedom.
Right. So that little girl, those little girls in Afghanistan grow up to be uneducated.
Right.
She
slaves,
knew that
basically.
in her mind when she asked that question.
That's awesome.
And so you think about, okay, so now she asked me other questions too, but I listened to that one, and I wanted to know why she really said it. So I kind of pried on her a little bit. She explained herself a little bit, but this is what I got out of that. That little girl understood that if I lived in Afghanistan, I wouldn't have a chance that I have the chance that I have right now.
That's some great insight.
So when people know something, they know it.
Right.
So what we're saying here is this. In a gun-free zone, when you're saying to somebody, no, they're thinking, yeah. Some people are thinking, yeah, I can go there without any
incident.
Because they're smart enough to understand that they can get away with it.
Right.
Now, if a 10-year-old girl can figure that out through something that's kind of totally not her, but figured it all out.
Think what a criminal can come up with. Oh, my God. That's just like when they posted all the CCW holders' names and addresses and phone numbers in the papers.
That was crazy.
Couldn't believe that.
That was crazy.
What were they doing? Okay.
Well, that mayor lost her. She's out now.
Well, thank God. But what about the paper and that did it?
Well, they sued the paper and the mayor's out. She's out. And the editor of that paper's out. But they tried to do that in New Jersey too.
Right.
In Jersey City, New Jersey too.
Unbelievable. All right. So back to the article. So let's go back to examples of spectacular stupidity. In Seattle, it's Mayor Mike McGinn, after being defeated multiple times by the courts while trying to force his agenda on people by legislation, is waging an ill-conceived anti-gun crusade designed to get local businesses to voluntarily discriminate against law-abiding gun owners. That's right. He wants businesses to display a sticker in their store windows that declares that of the 37% of the U.S. population who are lawful gun owners, we don't serve your kind here. That's just terrible. How American is that? We don't want you to be armed. We don't want you coming into our store. I mean, if you were a bar, I could see that because, hey, alcohol and guns don't mix and it changes the judgment ability. But,
except for in Arizona.
Well, even in Arizona, though, if there's a sign up, you can't go in there with it.
But there's no law against it.
Right. Otherwise, you can do it. The mayor claims that gun-toting citizens are a potential threat for confrontations to turn violent and ultimately tragic. Hypothetically, I suppose, that is a physical possibility. Just as it is a physical possibility for an asteroid to smash into Seattle and obliterate most of North America. Coincidentally, neither situation is very likely to happen. As noted, the folks legally carrying guns are the good guys, not the bad guys. And incidentally, when properly carrying a concealed weapon, no one should ever be aware that it's happening. That's the point I made earlier. It's unbelievable.
It's like I said, I had a nephew that told me, well, you should only be able to carry 15 bullets. Now, this is a kid who graduated from college, right?
Right.
And I said to him, well, why is that? I wanted to see what he had to say. He said, well, how many bullets do you really need? And I said, well, if you went that day and you went out shooting your gun and you shot all 15 bullets that you were allowed to carry, and you're on your way home and somebody robs you, you got no defense.
Yeah, you're done. You might as well throw your gun at him.
Yeah, the gun doesn't do anything.
Caveman style.
Yeah, because you would have shot your 15 bullets.
Shot your what? So no one can ever feel uncomfortable. Mayor McGinn's sticker also just as likely to stop the asteroid as they are to prevent any accidents or incidents of violent crime. Of course, the real meaning of the sign is only armed bad guys with guns and who don't give a damn about stickers are welcome here. And if you're an armed bad guy and you decide to rob the place or hurt people, no one here will spoil your fun. We're here to make your rampage of death and destruction as enjoyable as possible. Have a nice day. I mean, I know that's extreme, but the truth of the matter is, it does present the situation that, yes, bad guys will realize it's just like the Aurora shooting. The guy didn't go to the theater closest to him. He didn't go to the biggest theater. He went to the theater where there was no guns allowed. So he'd be the only one rampaging and pillaging. I, for one, will not tolerate such government-sponsored, institutionally bigotry against gun owners, and will gladly not do any business with any entity declaring itself to be a gun-free zone, regardless of whether I'm carrying my personal sidearm with me at the time or not. In fact, gun owners should loudly protest any such establishments, and shame on them for their wanton discrimination practices. I believe the tourism industry should also make sure that all gun owners are aware that Seattle is a city where they and all their tourist dollars are not welcome. I can see in America we're all free to make decisions, but we also have to remember that for every decision we make, there's a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. If I go to a place and I'm not allowed to carry my firearm and I don't feel comfortable there, the consequences are that I'm probably not going to come back. That's a choice you made, and it's a choice that may backlash you, just like what we saw with Duck Dynasty. People do stand up for what they believe in. It's unfortunate today that we do have so many colleges and universities that are teaching this bigotry and teaching that guns are violent, when in fact they're not showing both sides. They're showing one idealistic side, and it's a side based upon a perfect world that does not exist.
Yeah, I mean, in our colleges, it's crazy. It's crazy what comes out of those. I heard a live broadcast one time of not a live broadcast, but a tape where a kid taped another person and said that President Bush, who's been out of office for like 5 years, right? It was really his problem that we're still in the mess we're in.
Right.
You're like,
oh my goodness.
Okay, you don't like President Bush. Okay.
Well,
but don't lie.
That's just like during the election time period. There were guys outside of colleges, and they were asking these kids these questions. Do you know who did this horrible thing? And they'd say, "Well, Bush must have done it."
Yeah.
And then they'd say, "No, you're the new president has done this." And they said, "Oh, well, then that's okay."
Oh yeah, he gets a pass.
He gets a pass. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, once bigotry has set in your heart,
it's hard to get it out.
It's really hard to get it out. Yeah,
very much.
You got to
to
really
open your eyes. You really have to have some.
I'm so thankful for 1988. That's the year that I used to be. I used to vote Democrat and stuff like that.
Right.
But something just came by me. Somebody said the right thing to me, and I thought, well, let me check that out. That doesn't sound right. And when I checked it out, my eyes were open, and I said, oh, my gosh, no. That's not true.
But yet, there you were.
There I was, sitting there reading it right there. And that day, not that day, but right after that, I went in and changed how I vote, restructured everything and never looked back. And I looked at the party that I was going to be voting for and see how they're doing, too, so to make sure. But, yeah, isn't that incredible?
God, I wish we could get rid of all the parties.
And the only reason why I was a Democrat? Because my mother told me I was. No, you think I'm kidding you?
No, absolutely. I remember Happy Days. Do you remember the scene where they're all talking about voting and being a Democrat and all that stuff? I forget. It was one of the first or second year that Happy Days was on, and many other shows that I've seen throughout the years. And even my grandfather, who was an FBI agent, they voted Democrat, and well, that's the way you had to vote. That's the family way.
Yeah, right.
We're all Democrats. It's like, wait a second. No, hold on. once you start looking at the ideals and what they actually stand for and what they publicize as their meaning, not what they really do and stuff like that, or both. I don't know. You get a real picture and a real sense of what's going on.
Yeah, if you grow up Roman Catholic, South Buffalo, New York kid, that's what you are.
Right.
You're a Roman Catholic Democrat that fights for the unions, that does this, that's what you do.
Right.
And so by the time I was 20, I didn't really think about it too much. And then I found the Lord, became a Christian. Then after that, I started thinking about what really is the truth and what really is going on. It took me a few more years to get off the Democratic Party, but I finally did. But I'm really happy that I made that decision on my own. So nobody persuaded me. They said something to me, and I said, no, that's not true. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let me find out. And I did, and I was heartbroken.
If only I could get my dad to sit down and do that. He's a diehard Democrat now, more liberal than anything. As a matter of fact, one time he even told me, look at our forefathers. They were as liberal as they come. And I was like, no, Dad, I don't think so.
Did you want to take a break? You were looking at the clock.
We should probably take a quick break. I think that we've gotten the gist of this article written by the president of the National Rifle and Pistol Association, and it makes sense. The next article is going to back up, and it's going to be like beating a dead horse with a stick, but we're going to have a few more tactics or statistics in this, and it should take us a little bit further. It's actually an interview, so we'll have questions and answers with this, and it's just well put. And if we can all think about this in that sense, we'll get a lot further ahead. The next article is gun-free zones. I'm sorry, that's wrong article. Let me head on to the next one. Gun expert Lott. Let teachers carry arms, ban gun-free zones to halt mass shootings. And we'll be right back with you on the firing line.
You're listening to On the Firing Line on the information station.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We will be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years.
On the air with the Midnight Mystic is one of our regular callers, truck driver Charlie.
Boy, I just seen another one, Midnight Mystic.
Another Griffin, Charlie?
I'm telling you, they're all over the Central Coast now.
How long have you been on the road now, Charlie?
2, 5, 8 weeks, I don't know.
Perhaps you should park the truck and get some sleep, and maybe the Griffins will disappear.
Well, there it is again. I'm going after it.
What does it look like, Charlie?
Holy mackerel. It's got the body of a lion and the head of an eagle.
Is it flying, Charlie?
It's on the side of a white truck.
Is it a Griffin plumbing truck, Charlie?
Could be. I don't know. I'm pulling right up to it.
We seem to have lost contact with Charlie, but I'm sure he'll be okay because Griffins, just like the good folks at Griffin Plumbing, are here to protect and serve. In fact, if your plumbing devices are threatened in any way,
call the Griffin.
Find us at callgriffinplumbing.com or call 934-1949.
You are on the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440.
All right, let teachers carry arms. Ban gun-free zones to halt mass shootings. That's the next article we're getting into. This is a interview that actually happened between Newsmax and Dr. Lott. And some of the answers that he comes up with here with the questions that Newsmax presents it's pretty good. And I thought that in going over these, we'll probably be able to identify with him, maybe even get some new facts and food for our fights to continue fighting for our right for our Second Amendment. All right, banning gun-free zones and allowing teachers to carry concealed weapons could help eliminate mass shootings at schools. John R. Lott, one of the nation's leading gun experts, tells Newsmax in an exclusive interview Saturday. Lott, an author and college professor, told Newsmax that gun-free zones become a magnet for deranged killers who hope to burn their names in the history books by running up a big body count. Lott's landmark book, More Guns, Less Crime, Understanding Crime and Gun Control Laws, is in its 3rd edition. He told Newsmax there is a very good chance the Connecticut school shooting could have been averted if teachers there were permitted to carry concealed guns. It is no accident, he said, that mass shootings repeatedly have occurred in designated gun-free zones, which attract lunatics looking to murder as many souls as possible before they turn their guns on themselves. So Newsmax asked Dr. Lott this question. Dr. Lott, your work suggests people are more secure rather than less so when firearms are readily available in society. And Dr. Lott's answer to this is simple. Simply telling them to behave passively turns out to be pretty bad advice. By far the safest course of action for people to take when they are confronting a criminal is to have a gun. This is particularly true for the people in our society who are the most vulnerable. You know, that's so true because it's just like Jim had said the one time before. Imagine your mom or your grandmother is now 86 years old. She's living by herself because her husband has passed away. She's in an apartment. Maybe you're having to work out of country or something like that. You know, somebody breaks down her door while she's in her bedroom. She reaches to her dresser table to get a firearm to protect herself. That's what it's there for. But imagine this, if the anti-gunners have their way and or apartment buildings are allowed to put up stickers that say gun-free zone, she'll reach for that gun and it won't be there. And will you have that loved one to come back and talk to? Or will she be a statistic for somebody else? This is something we all have to take into consideration and think about. And it makes very much sense what he said. The most vulnerable. He's absolutely right. Newsmax also goes on to ask another question. The media typically spins these mass shootings as an American phenomenon. They suggest we ought to be more like Europe with strong gun control, because then we would not have those problems. Is this true?
Absolutely not. We know that that's not true because we've seen the killings and the guy that went in and killed 300 people with a bomb and then machete and stuff like that. So it's not true.
Absolutely. And Lott goes on to say this. No, Europe has a lot of multiple victim shootings. If you look at a per capita rate, the rate of multiple victim public shootings in Europe and the United States over the last 10 years have been fairly similar to each other. A couple of years ago, you had a couple of big shootings in Finland.
Yeah, that's
About
right.
2.5 years ago, you had a big shooting in the UK. 12 people were killed. You had Norway last year where 77 died. 2 years ago, you had a shooting in Austria at a
Shiite temple.
No kidding. I thought that happened in America. This must be a totally different one. There have been several multiple victim public shootings in France over the last couple of years. Over the last decade, you've had a couple of big school shootings in Germany. Germany, in terms of modern incidents, has 2 of the 4 worst public school shootings, and they have very strict gun control laws. The one common feature of all of those shootings in Europe is that they all take place in gun-free zones, in places where guns are supposed to be banned. So you tell me, we get rid of all the guns, we take the guns away from people, we get rid of search and seizure, and we just take the guns, okay? And we put up the stickers that say, no guns allowed anywhere. You think that's going to stop this? Use your common sense.
No, of course, Joe. It won't. It can't.
There's no way it can.
Does anybody ever watch the Biography Channel or the History Channel see these people that are criminally insane? And they walk among us. Do you know how many serial pedophiles there are in Santa Maria alone?
Oh God, there's probably
don't
over
even
100.
look on the internet because don't do it.
I don't want to.
These are people who have molested a child under 14 more than 2.
Ouch. That's scary. I mean, I've gone on the Megan thing and things like that and looked around my neighborhood. When I was a kid, I played out in the front lawn.
Everybody used to.
I don't let my kids. They're can
too
play in the
afraid.
backyard, yeah.
I had a friend that used to work, well, he still does. He works up at Atascadero.
Uh-huh.
And so he told me that they're building a new wing in Atascadero, and it's the criminally deranged for pedophiles that kill children. Okay, and I thought, well, okay, that probably happens. So I don't know why I asked him. I just said, well, how many will it house? 700.
Ouch.
Just for California.
Ouch.
700. I was thinking he was going to say something like 24, maybe.
There's about 20 or 30 of them up there.
Yeah, 700.
That's scary.
There's a lot of scary people.
There are, and you have to be careful out there. That's one thing I never want to see my kids hitchhiking. I don't believe in hitchhiking anymore because I've seen too many of the scary movies where people pick up people and they never are seen again. All right, Newsmax asks Dr. Lott another question. Can you give readers an example of an incident where a teacher or an authority figure with a gun was able to thwart a violent shooting? And Dr. Lott replies by saying, there was the university case in the Appalachian Law School. You had kindergarten through 12th in Mississippi and the one in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. And you had New Life Church in December of 2007. You had 7,000 parishioners there when the person broke into the church with about 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Oh, my goodness. But there was a woman there, a former Chicago police officer who had gotten a concealed handgun permit because she was being stalked by her ex-husband. She had asked permission from the minister there to be able to carry a concealed handgun. She was worried if she couldn't carry it at the church there, that she would be vulnerable going to and from the church. She shot at the man 10 times, wounding him, and he committed suicide. These types of cases occur all around us, as they usually don't get much attention, especially if they're stopped before people are injured or killed.
Right. Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. The Edinburgh one, we know about that one.
Right.
That's where the guy went into the school and tried to shoot, and somebody shot him before he got in. We've seen him with the guns.
These things happen. People are able to protect themselves. Not always are we going to be able to get the guy right off the bat, and maybe a couple people will pass away. But we can minimize the damage.
What was the one? There was another one in the mall in Texas where the guy started to shoot up the mall and somebody shot him. Big guy, huge guy, and they had it on camera where he got shot.
Ouch. I'd have to go back and do some more research.
That was during Christmas. Like probably about 5 or 6 years. It's been a while.
Wow.
It's been a while, but yeah, I remember that one.
I mean, it's insane, but when people do have firearms and can protect themselves, and when we live in a society where we have respect for firearms, we can do so peaceably until it's needed. Oh, gosh. All right, Newsmax again asked Dr. Lott, how can society prevent such mass shootings, or are they avoidable at all? Dr. Lott replies, about 75% of the time when these attacks occur, the killers themselves die at the scene. Even the times when they don't die, it seems pretty clear their intent was to die. But they just couldn't bring themselves to commit suicide, pull the trigger, and shoot themselves at the last moment. But in their warped mind, what they want to do is commit suicide in a way that will get them attention, so people know who they were when they were here. It's a pretty sick idea, but if you read the documents that they leave, the diaries and the videotapes, it's pretty clear that these guys know that they get more attention the more people they can kill. So their goal is to try to kill as many people as possible. So there are two issues here. One is focusing on the attention, and I think it's pretty clear that if people stopped mentioning their names, I'm not saying that that's possible, that's the one thing that they can reduce their incentive to go and commit these crimes. That's a good point. You're only a martyr if you're remembered.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Even though you feel like you're martyred.
Right, very true. The second thing is to give people the option to protect themselves. One of the things I've written about recently is the attack in Aurora, Colorado movie theater. There you have seen movie theaters There are 7 movie theaters that were showing the Batman movie when it opened at the end of July. Out of those 7 movie theaters, only 1 movie theater was posted as banning permit concealed handguns. The killer didn't go to the movie theater that was closest to his home. He didn't go to the movie theater that was the largest movie theater in Colorado, which was essentially the same distance from his apartment as the one he ended up going to. Instead, the one he picked was the only one of those movie theaters that banned people taking permit concealed handguns in that theater. The problem is, whether it is the Portland shooting earlier this week or the Connecticut shooting Friday or the Sikh temple attack in Wisconsin, time after time these attacks take place in the few areas within a state where permit concealed handguns are banned. It's not just this year. It's all these years in the past. And at the same point, people have to recognize that despite the obvious desire to make places safe by banning guns, it unintentionally has the opposite effect. And that's just it. We try to put ourselves in a perfect world, and it's not. That's why we have to teach our children. That's why we have to take responsibility for our actions, because we don't live in a perfect world. And under that thought and idea, you have to sit down and really think about it, discuss it with your family, and figure out, well, what can we do to protect ourselves? What can we do to help protect other people, which is the honorable thing? And if you do that, and you really have a serious debate about it, it'll come down to the choice you have to make.
It's like this. I was just thinking of this. It's like the gym teacher who got hit with the jockstrap in the back of his head while they were all lined up because he was a bad gym teacher. He turns around and he says, "Who did that?" And nobody's making a sound. He says, "Okay, you're all under detention. Okay? Now let's reverse that a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say he's not that bad of a guy, but they just decide to tease him.
Right.
He gets still hit with the athletic supporter, but he turns around and he said, "Who did that?" And he just kind of scans the audience and then looks and says, "I'm going to find out who did this."
And when I do.
Yeah. See, that's a different thing, huh? Than punishing everybody. Sooner or later, I'm going to find out who did this.
That's a good point, really, because
it's better that way. Then you spread more fear into the person who did it.
Right.
They're going to get caught eventually, and they don't have to go through everybody else.
And not everybody should have to be punished for the actions of one person.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying with the gun-free stuff.
That's what all this does. Exactly. It's a very good point to think about, because you cannot run around in life and let all of our things that we do and all the things that we are be dictated by the actions of one nut crazy or one criminal crazy person. We all have the right to live our lives and become whatever we want, but we have to take responsibility for our actions. If you are willing to let your family be murdered in front of you, that's your choice, I guess. But don't expect that the person next to you has to do the same thing. Let us all hold on to what we have, and like Jim said, you can command presence. You can command that leadership ability and put the fear of God in somebody just by a good stare or look sometimes, or by somebody knowing, hey, he might have a gun.
And I'm smarter than you.
Right.
I'm going to figure you out. I'm smarter than you. If we would just do that as a society instead of punishing everybody, and it's not getting any better with it right now.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I know we only have 2 minutes left. I want to go back to Christmas. I hope everybody out there had a great Christmas.
I had a great one.
I got to spend it with my family, and we all had a great time. We had steaks for dinner,
which
terrific. Is always nice to have. Jim, you had...
I had a techno one. My son lives in Florida, so I woke up real early. I got up, like at 7, and started the computer and everything, and we Skyped.
Oh, wow.
And he sent a bunch of presents to his nieces nieces. They came over, opened the presents. Here we are 3,000 miles away watching each other open up presents. And,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really kind of cool. I kept thinking to myself, wow, what a world we live in, right?
Absolutely.
It's really
what
neat.
World we live in.
Now, my son, he's got 4 guns. They have 4. And he's got a concealed permit carry.
Sweet.
Yeah, I told you he carries the Glock 9s and stuff. He's a big gun advocate. He might listen to the show today. I told him we'd be on again today. So.
Awesome. Well, hopefully he doesn't think it was too much of a run-on, but...
No, Joe, you did a great job. Everybody give Joe a hand.
Yay! Oh, that's just me. I enjoy doing the show, and I hope that everybody out there still enjoys listening to it and being part of it. And we always welcome your calls to the show and to hear your 2 cents as well. I think that all of us that are listening to the show really believe in what we're doing here. And I just want to wish everybody a great weekend and
Happy New Year.
Yeah, and a Happy New Year. We'll be talking with you next year. All right? I'll be right back on the firing line in less than a year's period, but next year.
Yeah, we'll see you all next year. Have a great one, everybody.